The UK's tax system is weird. Very weird. After years of additional taxes being introduced, old taxes being tinkered with, and rebates being messed around with, we now have a system that could baffle even the most educated economist at first glance. Just take a look at this. This is the UK's marginal tax rate at different levels of income. If the UK had a truly progressive tax rate, it should slowly increase, not jump up massively at different income levels and then decrease at others. The thing is that while this is the most obvious place of strangeness in the tax system, it's not the only one. So in this video, we're going to take a look at why there are so many strangenesses in the UK's marginal tax rate, and why basically wherever we look in the tax system, we find weird rules and caps. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, it's worth first explaining exactly what a marginal tax rate is and how it differs from an effective tax rate, as there is at least some evidence to suggest that the public's understanding of this isn't quite what it probably should be. An effective tax rate is the percentage of someone's income that they pay in tax. The marginal rate, however, is the percentage they would pay on the next pound they earn. The marginal tax rate is therefore useful to consider, as it shows just how much incentive someone may have to earn more money. Now, this might sound a little ridiculous, but there are some clear examples of where this might happen. If you have a very high marginal tax rate, say 70%, do you really want to work extra hours for just 30% of your pay? And consider that you have a child, and working these extra hours would mean that you'd have to pay for extra childcare. There are instances when this just wouldn't be worthwhile, as your extra pay wouldn't even cover the cost of your childcare. The point we're making is that it's essential that marginal tax rates don't get too high, otherwise you begin to discourage working. Anyway, the big problem with marginal tax rates is how they go up and down at different points, with certain individuals earning between £60,000 and £80,000 facing a whopping 56.5% marginal tax rate, higher than some individuals earning over £100,000. To understand why this is, we first need to get to grips with how people pay tax on income. Essentially, there are two main taxes that people pay in the UK: national insurance and income tax. Each of these have different rates associated with different income levels, but essentially, the more people earn, the higher tax people will pay. Now, one of the big misconceptions is that when someone gets into a new tax band, they pay the new level of tax on all of their income. But this just isn't the case. Instead, the new level of tax is paid on any income between this threshold and the next income tax band threshold. For example, any income up to £12,570 is tax-free. Anything between £12,570 and £50,270 is charged at 28%, taking into account income tax and national insurance. And anything between £50,270 and £125,140 is taxed at a combined rate of 42%, while anything over that amount is taxed at a combined rate of 47%. While this isn't a perfectly progressive system, as there are taxation jumps at certain levels, it's not terrible either. The more you earn, the higher your overall effective tax rate, i.e. the overall percentage of your income that you pay as tax. But the issue comes when you take into account other taxes and benefits. For instance, parents are entitled to child benefits. However, at £60,000, parents need to start paying the high income benefit charge. This is charged at 1% of your child benefit for every £200 of income between £60,000 and £80,000, meaning that when you earn £80,000 or more, the tax is high enough to wipe out the benefit altogether. This is what accounts for the higher marginal tax rate between £60,000 and £80,000. The thing is that this isn't the only bump in the marginal tax rate. People earning between £100,000 and £120,000 also see a bump in their marginal tax rate. This is because your personal allowance, the first £12,570 of your earnings that are exempt from tax, goes down by £1 for every £2 that your income is over £100,000, which means that by the time you get to £125,140, you have no extra allowance left. This is why we see that second bump. Now again, it's worth pointing out here that these are simply bumps in marginal tax rates, not effective tax rates. i.e. someone on £100,000 is not paying more gross tax than someone earning less than that. However, the fact that someone has a ridiculously high marginal tax rate of 62% between £100,000 and £125,000, even higher if you've got a student loan, that drops down to 47% when you reach £125,000, shows just how bizarre and often badly designed our tax system is. Now, it's clear that the income tax and national insurance system is trying to be progressive, with those who earn more paying a higher proportion of their income back in tax. Due to weird quirks, though, this isn't really the case. And to be fair, we see this across the rest of the tax system too. For instance, council tax is also relatively progressive, with the houses that are valued more being charged more for their local services. However, the highest band a property can fall into is Band H, and that's for properties valued at £320,000 or above, which means that someone with a house worth £321,000 will pay the same as a member of the super rich living in a multi-million pound house. We also see this when it comes to capital gains tax. This is a tax paid on the increase in value of an asset at the point it's sold. While there are different rates for basic income taxpayers and above, the rate overall is quite low. And again, that rate doesn't increase significantly for those just squeezing into the higher income tax band and the ultra rich. Both of these demonstrate that while politicians have been keen to show that they've created a relatively progressive tax system, it isn't actually that progressive. So why is that the case? Well, raising taxes isn't an easy thing for you to do as a politician. Nothing will earn you negative headlines as easily as raising taxes, especially if the press can prove that it hurts anyone other than the super rich. Therefore, instead of raising taxes across the board, politicians often try to target tax rises incredibly specifically, or provide exemptions for certain individuals. While this reads well in news headlines, the outcome of this is that every time it happens, it adds a new complexity and weird incentives to our already confusing tax system. Perhaps the best course of action for politicians to pursue would be a policy of tax simplification. Although this would also prove controversial among some, and it would inevitably lead to some groups missing out. Therefore, it's probably best not to wait with bated breath for any of this to change anytime soon. As the year comes to a close, there's a lot to look back on. But when it comes to the year in politics, nothing stands out more than all of the elections of 2024, with almost half of the world heading to the polls at some point this year. So if you want to catch up with everything you missed from all of the countries you don't normally pay attention to, or if you want something to commemorate this crazy year in politics, then consider grabbing a copy of our magazine, Too Long, where our election special dives deep into 29 major elections from around the world. We don't just discuss those elections though, we also run through China's trade issues, Biden's successes and failures, the UK's new opposition leader, and the state of the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. Plus, the fact it's a magazine also means that we're not constrained by the time limits or algorithms imposed by YouTube. Unlike fleeting news cycles or algorithmic feeds, Too Long offers thought-provoking analysis and comprehensive coverage that's truly worth holding. Purchasing is also a great way to support the channel, because running TLDR this year has cost just under £800,000. So if you've enjoyed our coverage from 2024, then picking up a copy of Too Long doesn't just get you high-quality reporting, it also allows you to invest in independent journalism and join us in shaping the future of news. So if you want a copy, then you can order a physical copy from our store right now, and we'll get it to you as fast as we can. Or if you prefer, you can just download a digital copy, which will immediately land in your inbox, which could be useful this time of year. Also, if you want to support us long term, you can subscribe to Too Long and get every copy. And as a thank you, subscribers get 20% off every issue as long as they stay subscribed, which is pretty huge. Regardless of which option you choose, you can buy a copy right now at toolong.news or by clicking the link in the description. Anyway, thanks for your support and thanks for backing Too Long.